Alrighty, welcome back to the Blood Bear channel, and in this video, we'll be talking about the Spider-Man 2 from the PS4 Spider-Man game series, so the one with the more recent Spider-Man games. Because I feel like it, and I just finished playing the new game plus, so it's kind of fresh in my mind, and I remember why I didn't like it very much. And there are going to be spoilers in this video. But yeah, I'm pretty much going to be talking, and this is a video on how I personally think that it could be improved, mainly focusing on the story aspects of it, because that's what I feel like isn't good, I guess, is what you would say there. Alright, so let's just jump straight in. I'm going to start off with what I liked about the game, and that is pretty much, I do like the gameplay. The gameplay was great. It feels the same, but there are also improvements, like with the more special abilities, like with Peter's like robot arms, like what the Iron Spider suit has from like the movies or the comics. So those are good choices. And then the boss fights were also had a big improvement from the last game, especially since they added the health bar on, which helps to know when the bosses will eventually die. So that was good improvement there. So I liked that. And then I did like the Venom level that ended with the Kraven boss fight. Very fun. They should have done more Venom levels. At least two. Come on, guys. But yeah, and that's pretty much the only things I liked about the game. I liked some of the side missions and stuff too. Obviously the hunter blinds were good. I liked those, and I also liked there's one other one that I really liked, but I can't remember what it is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what they are. The Mysterio ones were kind of fun, but I don't like that. And here, okay, let's get into my dislikes, since we're going to be talking about those now. So from whenever I was talking about the Mysterio ones, I don't like the Mysterio boss fight is fun, but I don't like that. What is it? That the boss fight, not the boss fight, that Mysterio isn't actually Mysterio. It's one of like the new people that were helping him run the new Mysteriums and stuff. I don't really care for that. It would have been much better if it was actually Mysterio. And then, okay, now let's get into this. Now, MJ levels should not have been included in the game at all. All the characters generally felt like a massive downgrade from the previous games, in my opinion, because I feel like Peter is supposed to be mentor to Miles. He's never mentor to Miles a single time throughout the game, and then he also he is always supportive of everything MJ does ever, which is weird because I feel like he would still want MJ to stay away from dangerous situations, because she's not a freaking superhero and she could easily die. Which you think she also would have learned from the last game. Also, nobody ever mentions or even really talks about, well, I guess that's not necessarily true, except from the beginning of the game, because they do talk about May's death a little bit, briefly, but nobody ever helps Peter get, try to get through it, really. So, I mean, Miles completely just never even talked to Peter about it at all. So, there's that. Um, okay, and then there's also the Miles like revenge plot against Martin Lee, Mr. Negative. It feels like they never really fully lean into it because Miles is like at first, like whenever he first sees Martin Lee again, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you," and then immediately after he kind of gets over it, pretty much. I mean, he's still upset with Martin Lee throughout the entire game, but the revenge plot kind of never goes anywhere. Also, one thing I didn't like is it made no sense that Peter really got the symbiote suit, because Peter, I mean, Ame died like a while back, not that long ago, but other than that, he was in a fairly good place in his life because he was just moving back in. He just got Ame's house, right? His relationship with MJ was going pretty well, and all his Spider-Man stuff was going pretty well. And then later, like literally, not even that long later, like maybe a couple days later, he finds out his best friend's back, Harry Osborn's back. So must have been feeling pretty good about that. So I don't understand why Peter would get the Venom, the symbiote suit. The only real reason why he would get it is to make him more interesting compared to Miles, because then Peter would only have the robotic spider limbs, whereas Miles has his bioelectricity, his like venom sting and stuff. Okay, then we get to probably this isn't my biggest gripe. My biggest gripe, I'll talk about that after this. This is my second biggest gripe, my second one, and that is Kraven killing basically the entire rogues gallery of Peter, because he kills Scorpion. We see that. We are also seeing whenever we're walking through his base as Miles, that he's killed the Vulture, I believe, and that he's killed Shocker as well. So there's that. And then also, but then they have that. And then there's also the fact that if they're basically not killed by Kraven, they're basically reformed and are decent guys now. Because literally, I think last time, in the last game, Tombstone was selling drugs and stuff, or trying to, like, because he was stealing all those chemicals and whatnot. And basically, that fight, and now he works at the Coney Island amusement park as a freaking go-kart repairman. Like, what the hell? And then also, and the same with Mysterio, like I was saying with Mysterio, is he's reformed too, apparently, which I think is a really dumb decision, because if you reform all of the villains, or kill off all the villains, you're not really going to have any villains for the next game. So it just doesn't really make that much sense. And then we get to my biggest gripe, and that is the fact that Peter, good guy Peter, knows Kraven is hunting Black Cat and decides to send Miles instead of actually going himself. Now, he could still send Miles, but then later show up, but he doesn't, is the craziest decision ever to make, because Black Cat is Peter's ex, who he definitely still cares for, as we saw in the DLC of the first game. He still very much cares for her because, she's his ex. And her life is in danger, and Peter doesn't show up at all. It's crazy, and the dumbest decision ever. It completely goes against Peter, who Peter is as a character. So I don't understand why they would do that at all. It's just dumb. Okay. It's ridiculous. Right, now we go into the improvements. This is going to be the biggest section of the video right now. So, to improve this story, the first thing I would do is get rid of all of it, as well as the MJ missions. You get rid of all of it. Now, the start of the game can still be pretty much the same, with the Sandman fight, and then afterwards you'd get the Marco memories as a side mission, basically. Because I think that was a good introduction to the game. Also, it was kind of funny seeing Peter not be able to land a teaching job because he had to go be Spider-Man. So he was immediately out of a job. Because that's how Peter does things. Is he prioritizes him being Spider-Man over almost everything in his life, pretty much. And then, but obviously the reason for Sandman going on like his rampage would have to be different. So what I'm thinking is also, because since Venom and Kraven were both shown in the trailer of the game, like fairly early on, I think it was kind of weird that they had Venom then just be like the final boss. So I would not. Venom is not going to be the final boss in my personal opinion of what would be an improved story for the game. So in my thinking, because what I'm thinking is that the Venom symbiote is more of like a life support that Harry has right now. And so Norman hired Kraven to capture Sandman, or to try and capture Sandman, because his whole body is made out of sand. Obviously, I don't know exactly what Harry's illness was, but if it's something that's affecting his organs, his flesh, right, that would not affect him, because if that would not affect like someone like Sandman, because he's made out of sand. So those organs they're not really flesh, they're sand, right? So that would be a possible way to. So if Oscorp was able to experiment on Sandman and then also find out how Sandman became Sandman, then you could turn Harry into that same thing, and he would be cured of his illness, pretty much. So then that whole thing kind of unfolds. That's why Sandman was kind of going on a rampage. So once Kraven fails, then Norman's going to be like, okay, obviously he can't handle this by himself, so then he's going to break out other criminals instead of Kraven going to basically breaking them out just so he can kill them, basically. That's what he did. Instead, it's going to be Norman is going to have Kraven break out a bunch of other criminals to help get Sandman. So he'll break out like Mr. Negative again, so we can still have the Miles revenge story, because I liked where they were going. They just didn't go with it far enough to where it had any impact, really. So they break out Mr. Negative, Mysterio, Jackal, Hydro Man, and Shriek. I realize now that I said this, I completely forgot about Jackal while I was writing this script, and I did not give him a boss fight. So I'll have to think about where he goes. He might be a side mission, to be honest. So they all break out, and since it's Kraven that broke them out, they all think that this is like Kraven's like plan and his. So they all decide to work with Kraven since he broke them out and stuff. But it's actually Kraven's giving orders to them, but he gets his orders from Norman Osborn. So in the process of this, other criminals break out. So like Tombstone breaks out, Hammerhead, Cletus Cassidy, which is going to later be Carnage, and various other villains like from the first game. So like Electro can break out, the Rhino, all of those guys. And they can either have side missions and they're in the game as well. So like you can have like a Rhino side mission or something like that. But I'm thinking you just kind of leave them on. Maybe a DLC could be added to where you do that stuff, to where it's like a villain kind of like corralling DLC. So like you have to go and catch all these villains that escaped instead. So and then the flame cult will still be a thing, because I like those side missions. But the Wraith, so Yuri, she will not be Wraith in this game either. I still kind of just want her to be the police captain, like she was in the first game. So yeah, she'll still be that, and so instead the boss fight, and she's going to be the one giving you the side mission, giving the player the side mission. So then instead of the boss fight being against Wraith, because Cletus Cassidy will still get the like symbiote container from like Oscorp and stuff, and that the container will break from the train crash. Like everything will pretty much be the same, except that the container will break and the symbiote will bond with him, and he will become Carnage, which will end in a Carnage boss fight. Okay, and then also, I'm improving Black Cat's standing in this game. Black Cat will get her own side mission. Also, she's not dating another woman in this one. She went back to her thieving ways after her and Peter broke up. So she's back in town, still stealing stuff. So she gets her own side mission where Peter is going to end up letting her go, and then letting her go into hiding and stuff after Hammerhead escapes, and there will be a whole side mission about a Hammerhead like revenge type of arc, because since he now knows that she's alive and stuff, and he's out of jail, he's out of prison, because obviously Sable was the one that actually put him away, Sable and Spider-Man in the first game, but Black Cat stole a lot of those files from him, and he thought that he killed her, but then he's going to learn that he didn't, and there'll be that whole revenge thing going on that Peter will be doing. Okay, so anyways, after that's just one of the other side missions that I thought of, and then so while all that goes down, Peter and Miles are going to be trying to protect Marco from being kidnapped by these other villains, and they're also going to think that Kraven's at the head of it, like of the thing. And there will still be the hunters in the game as well. So there'll still be like the hunter blinds and all that stuff. Will still be side missions in the game. Those will also still be like the little guys that y'all fight, that the player fights. So yeah. And then let's see, where do we go? Okay, and then I'm thinking, so they're trying to beat Kraven, but then while Norman is trying to capture Sandman, that's just only one possible thing that he has cooking. So then he's also going to have Dr. Kurt Connors, aka the Lizard, who has not been transformed into the Lizard yet in this game. He's working on the Lizard Serum to be able to give the people regenerative abilities, so he can regrow his arm that he lost, as well as then fix whatever is ailing Harry. So then Norman gets kind of impatient. So then, because like he's like, they're about to move on to the testing phase, Norman kind of gets impatient and just stab it into Dr. Connors, transforming him into the Lizard, and then chaos ensues. This is in the lab that also has that container tank. If you've played the first game, you've seen at the end of it, they had like the container tank with Harry floating in it. So this will break that container tank that Harry was in, and just as by throwing like Norman into it, and then just before the Lizard is about to kill Norman, Harry will transform into Venom, like totally, and stop the Lizard, and this will be an introductory Venom level and boss fight. So it'll be Venom versus the Lizard. Venom will, so once player plays Venom, then wins, then Venom is going to jump out of the building, go on his rampage throughout the city, and then Miles, before even seeing the news or anything, he's getting really frustrated with the escape of Mr. Negative and stuff. So he just goes out on a late night patrol throughout the city and runs into Venom there, where there will be a boss fight between Venom and Miles. And then at the end of that boss fight, the Venom symbiote will go to Miles. It'll bond to Miles, and then Miles will get on out of there. So then, kind of leaving Harry to die because he's still sick. So then Peter's going to show up, find Miles is gone. After seeing, he'll see Miles fighting this big black blob. Also, Venom won't have the spider on him yet because he hasn't met any of the Spider-Men. He hasn't met Miles and he hasn't met Peter. So then Peter goes, shows up to go help Miles after seeing the news. But then when he gets there, he just finds Harry, on the floor dying of his illness, and Miles is just completely gone. So then Peter takes Harry back to his dad, and then leaves pretty much right after that, because obviously, he's very concerned, but Harry has been gone overseas in quotation marks for a long while. So this is him finding out that he's actually not gone overseas for a long time. He's been here sick and at death's door. So yeah, and then Norman then changes the subject of the mission to finding the Venom symbiote, since it's gone off of Peter or off of Harry and into Miles. So then, to deal with this, Mysterio sets up illusions all throughout the city to distract Spider-Man, and as a side mission type of thing. And at the end of the side mission, there will be a Mysterio boss fight. There will be one that you have to do, which is general for those types of side missions, I think. And then, Peter being Miles' mentor throughout the game, trying to show him who he is. I feel like the only one that actually Okay, so for Jackal, again, I forgot to actually include him in this, but I feel like he wouldn't be a part of this plan at all. But he will probably also be a side mission. I'll have him be... Jackal can be a side mission by himself. And, if you've ever played the Arkham Batman games, he'll be kind of you'll find dead bodies at the nighttime, in the night, and stuff like that. And have to find your way back to Jackal, wherever Jackal's hiding, and then have to have a boss fight against him, is what I think that will be. So you get to see more of Peter's investigative skills, which I'm sure he has plenty of. So Mysterio sets up the illusions, get that as a side mission type of thing, and then Peter being Miles' mentor throughout the game, showing him how to be Spider-Man, and then ever since Mr. Negative escaped, Miles is getting frustrated. Miles then starts getting frustrated with Peter, since Peter is kind of like, okay, Mr. Negative, he's out, but he's not as much of a threat as whatever Kraven is planning on doing with Sandman. we gotta protect Sandman first, and stuff like that. So that's kind of Peter's thing. Miles is getting really frustrated with that, and Miles is the one who gets the symbiote suit. Because I feel like Miles has much more turmoil in his life than Peter does at this point. Because Miles is going to be rageful since Mr. Negative escaped, and then he's also very stressed out because, I think he's in the game. He was a senior in high school, and they were starting to go, like, his friends were all getting into these colleges and stuff, so he's very stressed about that, and he can't even get to an interview because he's busy being Spider-Man. So yeah, Peter's prioritizing finding out Kraven's plans, which is frustrating Miles. So then after Miles gets the symbiote suit, he's going to start ignoring Peter, his mom, Genki, those. I'm not including Haley in this at all. I think their relationship was so forced and it just sucked. That includes not including the Death, playing as Haley, the Death Girl, in a side mission, because that was extremely boring. All of Miles' side missions are extremely boring. So I think, basically, to fix that, he can do any of the side missions that Peter is doing, except for the flame one, and so you can play as any of those for him. Actually, he can do the flame one too. He cannot do the Black Cat one. It's the one he can't do. So yeah. Anyways, back to the topic. So then again, because like all these other villains are trying to distract Peter so they can, find the symbiote suit, get Sandman, because that's still one of their priorities. It's just not their main priority now. So Hydra Man shows up at the Coney Island amusement park, and it's like flooding it, because he's Hydra Man. He does water and shit. So then Peter goes to fight Hydra Man at that park, and basically it would be really cool because like the boss fight, you're gonna have to be swinging around the entire time, because there'll be like some amusement park pieces that are above, and then below is just like an entire flooded area and stuff. And Peter, at the end of this boss fight, Peter like almost dies because you do the boss fight and then cutscene. Peter almost is like gets hit in the last throes of Hydra Man's like thing, and then is like falling in through the water and like is drowning. But he doesn't die. So yeah, Mysterio, Hydra Man, and Shriek are all going to be acting as decoys, pretty much. Mysterio is a side mission, though. Hydra Man and Shriek are not. So they're all acting as side missions. So then, and while they're acting not side missions, they're all main mission. Mysterio is the only side mission. Hydra Man and Shriek are going to be main missions. While they're all distracting Peter, Mr. Negative goes to get Sandman, and then Kraven is tracking the symbiote with his hunter skills. So then, after Peter gets up, he's like, "Where the hell's Miles?" Right? But then immediately next he gets called from like MJ or somebody, and he's like, "Oh shit! I gotta go deal with this with Shriek," right? And so then he immediately goes to go fight with Shriek, but this time Miles does show up, and they begin, and Peter gives them the with great power comes great responsibility lecture, and Miles he's not having it. So and this is like the first time Miles is actually using the symbiote. So he like flicks the symbiote to the side. Peter able to dodge it thanks to his spider sense, but it hits one of the mind-controlled citizens because Shriek can do that because I think her power is like sound and stuff, so she can use like Pied Piper, kind of like the Pied Piper type of thing. So it hits a mind-controlled citizen, nearly killing that citizen. But then as that happens, Kraven is there watching as he suspected that it was Miles that had the symbiote and has been tracking his movements, and then saw him there. So he sees the symbiote go, and then, but he doesn't get involved quite yet. So he watches as, this boss fight between Shriek and Miles is happening, but Peter is dealing with the citizens, trying not to hurt them, but restrain them with his webs. And then there's a Shriek boss fight with Miles, and then at the end of that boss fight, Miles gets hit with a really loud concussive blast from Shriek, causing the symbiote to be all mad until, but then he just whacks her again. The symbiote kind of whacks her, knocking her out, but then Kraven swoops in and takes Shriek away. So then Peter calls Rio, Miles' mom, and tells her about everything that happened, and then they see the news alert of Mr. Negative breaking out Marco from the raft prison. Then so a few days kind of happen in between these events. Peter's beaten and bruised, so he needs time to recover. Miles just goes MIA and is not answering anybody's calls. So then we get this where Rio calls Peter, being like, "Where's my son? Where's my son?" And he gets that. Rio gets his number from Genki, I would say, because Genki kind of figures out who Peter is after the Sandman stuff. And then, so Miles kind of goes missing a few days before then. And there will be some stuff about him trying to find Miles, probably. But then the alert happens with Mr. Negative, and Peter immediately knows that's where Miles is going to be. So then Peter goes to the raft. As soon as you get there, Marco's in a large container, kind of like the one he was taken out of, or put into after you beat him in the tutorial mission from the game. And then and then there's the container is attached to a big helicopter. Mr. Negative's not on it, but he's standing next to it, and then out of nowhere, Miles comes in, kicks Mr. Negative, sends him flying with help from the symbiote and stuff. He goes through a wall, and then Peter tries to go to intervene, but is stopped by Kraven and Shriek. So then two boss fights are going to happen back to back. The first one is going to be Peter versus Kraven and Shriek. Is going to happen first, with Peter's going to lose that fight, and then the Miles and Mr. Negative fight will happen, and Miles' full-on symbiote rage. He's holding up Mr. Negative by the throat, about to kill him. But then Shriek and Kraven arrive. Shriek does her shriek, and Kraven starts ripping off the symbiote of Miles before he's able to kill Mr. Negative. So then, that happens. Miles is knocked unconscious, and then the symbiote is taken, and Peter takes Miles back to his mom. And then, they're all Miles' mom, Rio, Peter, and Genki. They're all there, waiting for Miles to wake up, and then they all, have a long intervention talking about revenge, and really laying it into Miles there. And he does not take it well. Genki and Peter leave kind of frustrated because Miles has been acting like a jerk for a little while, not really caring about anyone other than himself getting revenge against Mr. Negative for killing his dad in the first game. So then they leave, and then whenever they leave, his mom kind of stops lecturing him about all that stuff and is just hugging him, glad that he's okay. And then they start talking, like, she starts talking about his dad. I'm not giving her a new boyfriend in this one either. So she starts talking about Miles' dad and how she would always worry about him whenever he was out on duty and got home like late and stuff. And then this starts making Miles kind of feel guilty about everything that he's been putting his mom through and stuff. So then that cutscene ends, and then we go back to Oscorp. The symbiote gets put back onto Harry, and then Harry's in the tank, but then immediately gets turned into Venom. And this time it does have the little spider symbol on Venom. And we get to the second Venom level, which is going to be very similar to the first, or the only Venom level in the previous game, and it's about Venom escaping Oscorp, basically. And then at the end of this, there's going to be the Kraven and Shriek boss fight again. Trying to stop him, but Venom escapes. And then there is a little bit of respite to do side mission type of stuff until MJ and Genki are able to track that helicopter. MJ through reporter means, Genki through technological means. Then they put their information together and are able to find out that the helicopter belonged to Oscorp, or was funded by Oscorp, and they know that Sandman has been taken to Oscorp. So then Peter and Miles meet up. Miles apologizing, Peter forgiving him, talking about Uncle Ben for a little bit, and then how he understands that feeling of being like, yeah, I want revenge. And then they break into Oscorp, rescuing Sandman, finally taking down Kraven and Shriek in another boss fight, which I understand that might be kind of annoying since you've fought these guys 3 times now, but I guess it might not have to necessarily be a boss fight since they got injured by Venom. They might be weaker, so then it's just a 1 bar type of thing that you have to get them down and stuff. And then this really makes Norman start resent the 2 Spider-Men, because they just took every possible way that he had to cure Harry. They took the Venom suit first, and then they just took Sandman away, and then the Lizard's locked away. Dr. Connors is locked away in Oscorp, and they're working on a cure to make him not a lizard anymore. So that thing got put on hold, but that's not really Spider-Man's fault. But it starts making Norman really resentful towards the two Spider-Men. So then the next couple days go about. Norman puts all his money into the robot spider slayers, and these will be another side mission, with one mandatory mission being fighting one of the spider slayers as Peter. And these are all going to be kind of mini. These will all be mini boss fights. Thinking of the Valkyries from God of War. They're not mandatory boss fights, but they are boss fights that can be done. And I'm thinking the reward would probably be one of a spider slayer suit or something, which I think would be pretty cool. So that's a side mission, but one of them is going to be mandatory, and that one mandatory one that the player will have to do as Peter is going to get a sample of Peter's blood, which then Norman himself will analyze, figure out that blood is actually Peter's blood, and does have a little healing factor to it. So through that, he's going to, while Peter and Miles are trying to track down Venom, Harry, Norman's working on a new serum that will cure Harry by turning him into a Spider-Man, basically. So then, once they track down Peter and Miles track down Venom, get into a fight with Venom. So then, like, the first two kind of like waves of the boss fight. This will be probably like a 4-wave boss fight. So the first two is Peter and Miles working together, taking on Venom. And then, the news will happen. Norman will see it, go there. And then as he sees Harry kind of getting beat up by both Miles and Peter, he'll look at the G serum, or the Green Goblin serum, basically. It'll probably be called the G serum or something, and then he'll inject it into himself, and he'll turn into the Green Goblin. The one from the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. So this one's very much more demonic. He's got like the big leathery wings. He's massive. He's got the horns, and he can like shoot out fireballs and stuff. That's the one he's going to turn into. And then, he attacks Peter and takes Peter out of the fight. So then we'll have so that cutscene will happen. Miles will look, get hit by Venom, and then transition back into the Miles versus Venom boss fight. Then, Miles will win, but Peter and Norman got taken away because Norman can fly. So once Miles finishes that, the Venom symbiote kind of recedes back into Harry. So Harry's still alive, but the Venom symbiote is kind of like resting in Harry right now. So then he goes to go find Peter, and the camera will transition over to the Peter versus Norman boss fight, which will then end with Peter dying, kind of end and like both being defeated. Like, it'll end with Green Goblin being knocked out and reverting into Norman Osborn, since it was a big rush job, so it didn't last very long. So he gets transformed back into Norman Osborn. But Peter dies at the end of this, in Miles' arms, and it's very sad. But in my personal opinion, the only way Miles can actually be Spider-Man is if Peter dies. So Peter's going to die at the end of this game, and that's the end of the story of the game. There will be a DLC later, or anything like that. Alright, so, conclusion. That's pretty much how it should have gone, in my personal opinion. If they did a third game, Miles would, this would be more like a coming-of-age story for Miles, really fitting into the duty and responsibility of being the only Spider-Man. Because in the first game, he had his own like side game that wasn't as long as like a main story game, where he kind of had that coming-of-age story. But he knew Peter would be back, right? And so now he has to deal with all this stuff with Peter gone. So, and then I think that also what Insomniac could do is maybe a prequel trilogy where it's Peter, coming into being Spider-Man, and we see where have like one of them be where Black Cat is the main love interest or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that. Also, I will say though that before I end, that because with how it left off in the actual game with Peter retiring and stuff, it really did not leave much of an emotional impact. or setup for the next game, because Miles is not going to have really any emotional attachment to Norman or anything, and it seems like they're setting up to where Miles is going to be like the only Spider-Man, and Peter is going to be like a side character, like that will occasionally call in as like what MJ did in these games. MJ and Genki do. Which doesn't make much sense because that's not going to leave much emotional impact, because Miles isn't really connected to Norman at all, whereas Peter is through Harry and stuff. But if Peter gets killed by Norman, that would give a good emotional reason why Miles would not really like Norman or anything like that. Give some more, put some more emotion behind the story, But yeah, that's the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye. Oh wait. I have one more thing. If you like my videos, please do like and subscribe, because I'm pretty sure I had to say that now. Alright. That was it. We're done now. Get out of here.